Are you claiming your starlight or are you giving it away? Stay tuned for my video about the astrology of March 2023 with the 3 main aspects to pay attention to make the most of this cycle and of this year. And if you haven't yet, download my free training on the link below, the Sensitive Soul Awakening Roadmap, and start claiming your star consciousness and your power to create your reality and manifest your soul dreams. Hello, this is Esther Surana from Awakening with the Stars, and in this video I will talk about the astrology of March 2023 and the main 3 aspects that I find it's interesting to talk about right now. The first one is Saturn entering Pisces on March 8th, the day after the full moon in Virgo. And it's very interesting, this axis, because we have Virgo opposite to Pisces, and the sun was in Pisces as well. And so Saturn has been a couple of years there in Aquarius, now it's in Pisces. And despite Aquarius, it's already a sign that it's a lot about the future and building a reality that is very oriented on something new, on change. It's still a pretty logical change, it's very futurist, but there's still a logic to it. But with Pisces, there's no logic. It's where we lose the logic and we connect to divinity through imagination. And that's the thing with Neptune and Pisces. It rules intuition. And yesterday a client was asking me in a session, what's the difference? How do we differentiate when it is intuition and when it is our mind? That's the thing with Pisces. We have to trust the feeling, and it's something that is out of logic, the logical mind. So we could talk about the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere. And the left one, it's like the analytical one. It can be very precise, but it manages a small amount of data. And then the right one, it's not precise at all. It talks to us through a feeling, through art and things like that, but it manages a huge amount of data. We don't know how we know, but we know. And so it is a lot about giving yourself permission to trust that part of you. And it is a muscle that it takes decision after decision and seeing that it is actually leading you well, to trust it. So it's not something that, it's a process, it's not something that it necessarily happens overnight. But eventually you learn to differentiate what it is for you, because it doesn't work exactly the same way for each person either. And intuition for a person, maybe it's more connected to their body, they maybe have a sensation in their body, and another person, it's like listening to different signals or receiving different inputs, and then you just know. And it's difficult to explain, and that's the thing with Pisces, it's difficult to put words to it. And that's why it rules more things like poetry and art and imagination. And so Saturn, that is a lot about building the fundamentals of a reality, a structure. It's not so comfortable in Pisces, but at the same time, it's an amazing way to build reality, because you truly just need imagination. You don't need a logic sequence from point A to point B. You can truly quantum jump from one point to another in a faster way if you know the energy well, if you are well tuned to your intuition. And it's also a feminine sign, so it is about trusting that part of you that in this society we learn to shut down many times. So it depends on where you are in this process, but it is an opportunity to connect with it, whatever point you are in this process. More open, or maybe it takes you some time to build that trust. And then it's going to be a couple of years there, and this happened right after the full moon in Virgo. And Virgo usually, on an egoic level, tries to have control over things through being very precise and through managing the details. It is also connected to healing and body healing. And so these are two signs that are very complementary to unite intuition and healing if we are able to connect them, because sometimes one can be pushing to one side and the other to another, because maybe Virgo is looking for more, it's ruled by Mercury, so it may be looking for more practicality, something concrete to grasp, a logical answer. And Pisces is about including it all without this selection that Virgo goes through. But then both are necessary, because Pisces without Virgo, it would lose itself in the ocean without any boundaries. And in the human world, boundaries are super important as well. But if there are too many boundaries, too many limits, it also creates a rigidity and it doesn't allow us to expand into what is possible for us. And this reminds me of Peter Pan, because in a way we could connect it to the three events that I'm talking about. Since Pisces, it has to do with Neverland, because it connects us to the frequency of heaven, and Virgo connects us to the frequency of earth, and so it's about bringing heaven to earth. And the idea with Peter Pan, it's like there is this Neverland that, as the name implies, it's like it's always like out there. And this I'm connecting to the last quarter that we had next after the full moon on March 15th, because it's in the Sagittarius, in the Gemini decan, and it is connected to this idea of Peter Pan and Neverland. And the last quarter, it's always talking about something that we're letting go of. And in this case, it has to do with this illusion that it's not moving us forward, but keeping us stuck by having the dream out there instead of in our body. That would be Virgo. Instead of living it in the now moment and putting it in the future, like the grass greener on the other side. And so that is the ingenuity that needs to die, that part of us that doesn't want to grow up and just wants to play. But Saturn, it's like, okay, time to grow up, because it's Chronos, it's the time. It's like it also rules age, so it's like it gets to a time, especially on Earth, that okay, now it's time to take care of the practicality of life. But it is in Pisces, so it is about making dreams come true. But if we want to do that, we need to let go of the fantasy and then bring it to the here and now. The thing is that the last quarter on the March 15, it happened 3 days after the conjunction that we had of Jupiter and Chiron on March 12th, which I wrote about on Instagram, about healing the wound. And this was pretty strong. It felt, at least for me, and I heard a few people telling me about that it felt quite dark. And I feel it has to do with this idea in the beginning of the movie Peter Pan, of him pursuing his shadow. And the idea of this metaphor is that while he's pursuing his shadow, the shadow is outside of him. So it's when we project our shadow on something else, our darkness on something else, and then we blame something external, like, oh yeah, it's the government, or there is this bad guys and good guys, and I'm the good guy and the other is the bad guy, and then whatever feeling, whatever storyline that we're running through. And that's the illusion, the matrix, because it's always creating stories from the mind. But these stories that comes from the mind come from our past, from our recorded history. So it's just like a recording repeating itself. And so if we want to really create something new, and if we have dreams, they are probably something new, not repeating more of the same. If they are dreams, they're probably something that you don't have yet. So the idea here is that you could spend your whole life pursuing your shadow if you project it on something else. And so the key here, and it's when it becomes painful, because we had the last quarter in Sagittarius. The ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter, and Jupiter is connected to Chiron in this moment. And Chiron is the wound, is the wounded healer. Again, we have healing here. It's this archetype that can heal everyone but himself. And so the idea here is that we could spend our life seeing our shadow, the darkness flying around outside of us, and then blaming it, but then we'll live in chaos. and our dreams are outside of our reach because there's always something external that's getting in between. And this is what triggers our wounds from the past. And this conjunction happened in Aries, and this is an identity wound. It's about who I am. Our identity, our character is gonna determine what reality we are living in, what is our destiny, because the character, it's constantly creating a destiny. It's a storyline. I am the wounded healer, and then I can heal others, but I cannot heal myself. I am the loser, and then I lose in all of these areas of life, and things like that. These are just storylines from the Matrix. And so if we are playing a character, a role, we have a script for that character. If we want that character to have another reality, we'll have to change the character. We'll have to start playing someone else that has the things that we want to have. But as long as we play this game of seeing the shadow outside of us, it's not gonna happen, because we'll keep like in the victimization stage. And if you see in the movie, what happens for them to be able to go to Neverland is first Peter has to sew his shadow on his feet. And what that means is that instead of seeing it flying around on the external, he finally takes charge and takes the shadow back, and then he sews it. So this talks about awareness. The more aware we are about our own shadow, and the less we project it outside, the more it's on our side, because we are trained to be afraid of this darkness. But it's really like when there is a light, there is going to be some kind of shadow, right? And so these are also complementary. They can work together, because the shadow is only the resistance that's creating a form, and light is formless. It's like energy, it doesn't have any form. So we give it a structure, and also through Saturn, we give it a structure, a form. And so if we don't like the form that it has now and we want to create another form, we'll have to dissolve that shadow and then transform that energy into something else. And so to be able to transform that energy, first we have to own it. And through that sewing and that awareness, instead of, pointing to the other, through that taking responsibility, which is also Saturn, we can start calling back our own energy and then create something different with it. Create a new character that is able to go to Neverland from the here and now by owning all his creation or her creation. And so this brings us to the third main aspect of March, which is the new moon that we have coming up on next week on March 21st, which is also the equinox spring, the 0 degrees of Aries. And this new moon is happening in the 0 degree of Aries, which is the beginning of the zodiac wheel. So this marks a reset point, and we are talking about Aries, identity again, which is where the wound first already happened, right? And the wound is where the light can come in. And so if we were able to, instead of rejecting that shadow aspect of us, if we have been able to connect with it without judgment and get closer to it without running away, staying with it, with this darkness that is our own darkness, then that darkness starts to melt, especially if you are in your heart. And so through that melting, that form becomes formless, and then that becomes energy you have available to create something new. And then it comes the 0 degree of Aries doing this reset and all this energy from the spring equinox that is giving you the impulse, the fire to create something new. And so I would really encourage you these last days of the Pisces cycle to take the courage to approach your shadow from another perspective. And the question you can ask yourself is, first, find the trigger for you. What has been triggered this last week? Like, especially on March 12th, it was the peak, but during the whole week, probably you had different circumstances. Pick what triggered you the most, and then have the courage to feel that feeling and bring it to your heart. And if you are able to do that, going through the last part of the cycle, which is a much more feminine part connected to the witch in you that is capable of creating magic with this, with this shadow, then you will have this power available to make the most of the following cycle in Aries. And so I would encourage you to take it easy this rest of the week until we get to the equinox, and listen deeply to your body, to your sensations, to your feelings, and answer the questions that are coming up around the wound that it's been triggered. And then instead of rejecting it, like finding someone, maybe the person that triggered you, and then making that person the bad guy of the movie, the story, see what it is that this person is illuminating for you, or this circumstance is illuminating for you, and then let the light come in and dissolve that form. And it doesn't mean that you have to be best friends with that person if it's someone that triggers you a lot, for example, or that circumstance and suddenly it's the best of the world. It can happen maybe also, but the thing is to be able to be with it without losing your power, actually realizing that you're just seeing an aspect of yourself and welcoming it instead of fighting it. And the more you are able to do that, the more power it comes back. The more of your soul can come back, because you're not judging energy. You're not pointing to what's positive or what's negative. You're just welcoming it all, and then letting it to be clear through the source that is in you, because you are a part of source, and you have the power to clear any kind of energy and to make it formless again. And then with that formless, you then connect with that creativity to create whatever you choose. It is your choice then. And through your imagination with Pisces, it makes it very easy to imagine something and it's happening. If you have this power, if the power is running away, it's like when Peter Pan is pursuing the shadow. He doesn't have any power because he's just running after it. And then it's when you approach this that is inside of us, it's not on the external is just a projection, then it's when we are okay with anything. And that's a lot of power. We are not afraid that someone leaves or someone stays or someone gets closer or gets farther away. Like, everything is welcome. And then that becomes less and less triggering until you neutralize it completely. That's true power. That's when the energy is there. And then you choose. You choose the frequency and you merge with it. And the power is there to create it, to make it a reality, to manifest it in the physical world. And Neverland becomes a reality. But only if you gave yourself permission to go through this process, that it's not always comfortable. This is true mastery, to be able to sit in discomfort without running away and use it anyway. No matter the circumstances, you keep remembering that you are the creator, taking your light back instead of giving it away. And so 2 days after this new moon on March 31st, on the equinox, on the 0 degree of Aries, with all this fire coming ready to create something new, we have the event of the year, which is Pluto getting into Aquarius. Pluto takes 20 years in each sign, and so wherever the life area it was in your chart, now it's moving into the next one, and I think it will be for a few months there. Then it will come back to Capricorn, I believe, for a while, and then it's coming back to Aquarius to stay another 20 years there. And so this is big changes. We'll see how it affects on the collective. I like to approach it more personally, so it can be very different for each person depending on the area where it's moving for you. But pay close attention if you have personal planets, especially on Aquarius. Personal planets are the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, or Mars. And then if you have, like it's my case, a lot of planets in Capricorn, which is where it was before, it can be a relief as well, because Pluto can be a huge blessing, but first it's going to burn things to the ashes for you to be reborn in that area. So it's not always like easy to go through. It creates deep transformation. It's radical. You cannot recognize yourself after it. And so I would say observe how it feels for you. And in general, in Capricorn, it had a lot to do with transforming things connected to patriarchy, tradition, scarcity, things like that. Now moving into Aquarius, it's about the new and change. But Aquarius, it's about liberation. But liberation as a verb. So to be able to liberate from something, first we get awareness of where we are trapped in. So probably in the beginning we'll see more where we are feeling trapped. And so it's about regaining that power I was talking about to liberate yourself and then create something truly new. Not just dressed in another way, but staying more or less the same, which can also happen. And so I would say it's a lot on you to decide. Do you want to just change your dress, or are you willing to sit with that discomfort and truly create something new, to truly become someone new, someone that is more aligned to who you really are, and then live your heaven on earth? You decide, it's your life. And as I say, remember, you are the creator, so choose your interpretation wisely. You can like the video, leave a comment below if you have more questions, and then I'll keep creating new videos if you let me know if this resonated. And also, March is truly when 2023 is fully starting with all these changes, and sending you lots of courage, lots of blessings, and I'll see you in the next video.